Cheese, episode 478. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
Matt Selner. Hello. The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games, brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. We're rounding the corner toward the end of Season 10. But as we do, we're adding another game to the list. This week's game is Deadly Premonition, which I'm very, very excited to talk about. Before we jump into it, Matt, what food was so good that you leapt from your seat in excitement and shock?
I can honestly say I've never leapt from a seat in shock, but there I don't go there anymore. But once a year in Ocean City, you have to go back across the bridge. There would be like the diviest. It looked so like divey, out of the way. It looked like a bait shop, honestly, from the outside. You have no idea that there's this like dude who a chef in there that like changes the menu like every day based on what's in stock and whatever. And it's like some of the best food I've ever had. And there was one time, like, it wasn't even the food. There was, like, a homemade, like, chocolate cake that I ate. Oh, I, like, melted in my seat. It was so good.
Mark, how about you? What has made you gasp, drawing for breath?
I think I was taken back when I decided to try sushi again. It was, so, like, the first time I had it was not great because I didn't know anything about anything. I had let somebody else kind of pick it for me, and it was just like raw eel or something like that, and I didn't care for it. And like years later, I decided to like, you know what, I'm going to order my own, I'm going to pick from a thing, just going to actually be more, I wanted to try it again. I didn't want to have a bad experience. And so whenever I go to the place Chopsticks, I always get a volcano roll. That is my like number one all-time favorite. Because Matt's just like, he's agreed.
It's the roll I always get. That and a spicy tuna roll. Oh, it's so good.
So like it's I think it's deep fried somehow, or like some kind of fried on tuna roll, right? So and then like the sauce that you dip it in is also really good, and it comes out on fire. They light it on fire and they bring it out. And it's like, every time I order it, I love seeing people's faces because you can tell who's been there before and who hasn't, or who has seen that before. And most people don't usually see it. They're just like, what the hell?
I don't think I've ever gotten it on fire. But then again, I never eat in at Chopsticks. It's always carry out. So I don't think they're going to light up my carry out tray on fire.
Yeah, really? They don't? Yeah, no, they light it and then you have to put it out before you get outside. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, but I just watch it. I just watch the fire go till it's done. But so the roll itself is good, but dipping it into that sauce, just the combination, I will always remember that first experience of enjoying that. And every time I order it, I always think about that first time. So it's just it's a staple.
Yeah, that's the thing that comes to my head too is a place we went that their menu changes every Friday. It's only good for that weekend because they get what they can get, like from the nearby farm and stuff like that, depending on what's happening. But it's all super fresh and like I think it's fresh ingredients. Like everything is like literally hand-picked or whatever, like that day. And I think all three of what we're talking about, it's just like stuff that is good ingredients and I think prepared intentionally and with care and whatever. Yeah, it's good. Stop eating stuff out of boxes, kids.
Well, you just started the tagline for Papa John's. You said good ingredients. It took every ounce of me to not say better pizza.
Better
Papa
John. Yeah, I think that's the key. Make it fresh and make it with love, as Zach might say. We're talking about Deadly Premonition this week. got a lot to talk about with this one. Developed by Access Games, published by Ignition Entertainment Limited in the United States and Marvelous Entertainment in Japan. First released for the Xbox 360, February 23rd, 2010. Later ported to PS3, then Nintendo Switch, both under the Director's Cut Edition, which has some variances to cutscenes and gameplay systems a little bit. Now as a sequel, Deadly Premonition 2, Blessing in Disguise, out on Switch and PC. This game is a doozy. Yeah. Mark, you added this to the list. I'm curious to know why you added it to the list, but I also want to know, how did you first hear about Deadly Premonition?
Ooh, that's gonna be tough. Actually, maybe not. I think I remember seeing some clip online about it, or maybe it was a clip on G4 at one point, and I just like didn't know what I was looking at, or just thought it was always strange seeing like the enemy types that you deal with. They like walk backwards, or they're like bent over backwards crawling at you. Like that was one of the first things that stood out to me. And I also think I might have confused it with another game at the time. There was some weird Japanese horror game where the creatures were way more grotesque and maybe had similar animations. And I thought maybe that was also in this game, but it wasn't. And then when I worked at GameStop, you had the luxury of like borrowing a game for like 3 or 4 days or something, so you can have time to play it, learn it, so when you talk to a customer about it, you can sell it better. And I believe that was a game that I borrowed, and I just did not know what I was playing. I didn't know what I was doing. And so yeah, that makes sense, because I started working there like around 2009, 2010, something like that. So it was just weird box art that really drew my attention. And then didn't get far, got rid of it. Like I returned it. And then when I got a PC, I got it again on PC. I was like, you know what? I should really sit down and try to finish this. And I never did. I never put the real time into it until now. So not only did I want everyone else to experience the unique wackiness that this game delivers, but I also wanted to just complete this chapter in my life for myself, because this was like a long time coming, and I really wanted to see it through.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we did thoroughly. If you two don't mind, I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit here for the listener. This almost didn't happen. I don't know why. I don't know. With scheduling and whatnot, we were just kind of looking at things, and literally, what was it, a week ago? Maybe? A little more than that? We were like, maybe we swap this one, just with the games we've got left in the season and stuff like that. Like, the good thing about us not announcing the list to the public is that we could do something like that without anybody being any the wiser. I will say, we've not swapped out a game this year, have we?
Nope. I don't think so.
But this was the closest, to the point where we were like, and then we were like, nah, we can do it. We can make it through it. And I'm super happy that we did. Matt, where did you first hear about Deadly Premonition?
I can't remember when I first heard about it. I'm sure I saw somewhere along the way on Twitter or Reddit one of the dumb and ridiculous cutscenes from this game. But the weird thing is, like, I don't remember the exact part of learning about it, but when it dropped for free on PS Plus a few years ago, the director's cut. So I remember seeing it, and I remember being like, "Oh, that's that like weird horror game that like I think is bad, but also I've heard good things about it as well." Funny enough, I actually started it when it first dropped then. But I can tell you, I got as far as the opening cutscene, the scene immediately after the opening cutscene where York crashes the car, and I think I did like the first pathway of like seeing shadows or whatever for the first time. And it wasn't because I was scared or whatever. It was just like, I don't feel like playing this. And then I just kind of dropped it and never picked it back up. But I always knew it existed. I always knew it was like weird. But I just never paid much attention to it.
Yeah, I think I remember like the box art is definitely, I don't know, it stands out for sure. My longest running association with this game was Giant Bomb's Endurance Run, where they had 2 teams of 2 playing through it and trying to see who can get through it, you know, the fastest or whatever. I'd never really watched it, but there'd be like best of Giant Bomb videos or whatever that would happen, and you'd see like clips and stuff from them playing it, and like that stuff has always stood out to me. And then I remember when the director's cut dropped, they had Swery on and did an interview with him, and then did an alternate cut where the whistle song was played. And yeah. But yeah, other than that, I thought this was, and if you watch the launch trailer, you may think this is way more survival horror than it is. It's really not. It's kind of more, I don't know, just like an open world.
So, kind of like a slice of life game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my thing. I didn't, excuse me, I didn't realize that this was open world really until I think like the last moments of me about to play it.
Yeah.
I thought it was very much like, I don't want to say Resident Evil because that's a lot of back and forth, but like something more so in the terms of like Resident Evil 4, where 4 for the most part is very like linear, especially once you get into certain sections. Sometimes there's some rapping and backtracking, but it's not much compared to the other games. I guess you could say the same about 6 and 5. But yeah, I was thinking it was more like that, like maybe a little bit of backtracking, but like the story kind of like definitely like points you in the right direction at all times. Or not story, but you know, the setup, you know, whatever.
Yeah, like I guess listener, if you need like a visual, if you haven't looked it up yet, this game is basically like, you know, it's in a very small town. Like I'm not sure what state it's kind of modeled after. I'm not sure if it tells you what state you're in.
So, I mean, I think we could get this out of the way now. This game is heavily inspired by Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
So it is more than likely the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. So like for some reason you don't know what
I thought it said a state at some point,
but yeah, you're just a small little quiet town.
It's
surrounded by
Washington.
trees, lakeside.
Oh, it is Washington State?
Okay, Washington State, yeah. Yeah, it has like a pseudo jolly nature to it from the outside.
The game itself it went through some development history. It started as something else. That game was canceled. And then this was announced and also canceled 4 times. Like this, it had a rough patch that dates kind of back to 2003, 2004. The game was written and directed by Swery, who, for listeners unfamiliar, birth name Hidetaka Suehiro, but he goes by Swery. He'd worked on some other things prior to this. This was the one that I think made everyone know who Swery was, right? Like this was the one. And he's got his own game studio called White Owls, and they've made now a sequel to Deadly Premonition and another game called The Good Life. But this was kind of the one that got him that bit of fame, if you will. But it's he, I guess, like knowing a bit about him and like his history and fascination with American media and culture goes a long way in seeing how a Japanese developer could create such a perfect kind of, I don't know, picture of a small American town, because it does work, right? Like it.
I forgot what episode I said that on, but yeah, I love when like outsiders like do their take on America, and somehow they're always accurate.
Yeah, 100% of the time. And I think another element of that is like, contextually speaking, this game is finally released in 2010, right at the beginning, but of course had been in development through the beginning of, what was it, the 6th generation of consoles, but that Xbox 360, PS3 era. And that was the era where we were all told Japan's over. Japan did have a pretty tough time adapting to HD. Some of its biggest franchises that were kind of tried and true were not hitting where they used to. Remember, like, I think right now everybody's on the cusp of being super stoked about Final Fantasy 16. Maybe, I don't know how that latest trailer reception went over, but I don't know. Between Final Fantasy 14 and 16, I think that franchise has swung back in a good way, where there's a good bit where all of that 13 stuff, like, say what you will about it, like, you know that I will always defend it for fun, but it wasn't received well, and that was like one of the big ones. And just generally speaking, there was a lot of stuff where even Japanese publishers and stuff, like, look at where Resident Evil went, look at where Capcom took some of its other stuff, like, or the games that Capcom decided to produce, stuff like Lost Planet, that were way more Western influenced than anything else. And
yeah, everything was more action heavy.
100%. They were going for the Western market in so many ways. You had so many fewer
horror was dying too.
Who?
Like, horror games were just kind of dying in general around that point.
Yeah, it's just you couldn't do it, you know? You also had the rise of multiplayer, and then the whole threat of, like, all of that stuff is happening. And then I kind of find something poetic in the fact that during this, when the narrative from the video game industry is Japanese game makers don't know how to make games anymore, that a Japanese game maker would make a game based on and set in the West. I don't know, it was kind of interesting juxtaposition of things, but it, I think, worked in its favor too. And like the fact that this could have been a PSP game or PS2 game, or had been around for so long but ended up on the 360, I think it lent, you know, there's a bit more power to a lot of the systems and underlying aspects of this game, because there's a lot of stuff, and we'll jump in here in a second. I know I'm kind of top heavy on this, but stuff like when you're running from the Raincoat Killer and they're able to do kind of a picture-in-picture thing, like, that wouldn't have happened had this game come out on a different platform initially. But it was stuff like that where the game uses so few resources to push the latest and greatest, right? Like, it's not this huge, high-budget, crazy, you know, the most number of polygons on the screen you've ever seen type of game. But where it's not that, it is so many other things that those other games could never do. And I think, for me, it stands out in that way that, like, so many games now look the same and feel the same, and they're just, everyone's just kind of doing the same thing. And it's rare that you get something that says, let me pull back a bit, right? Like, I think it's neat whenever we see indie developers or whoever now making games for old hardware. Like, the stuff that they're able to do, you wouldn't have done back when those platforms were contemporary. If you see people who are making Genesis games now, or Super Nintendo, whatever games, they're doing stuff on those platforms that developers back then never did, because they were, one, still learning about that stuff. Like, those things have been completely deconstructed and understood at this point. But two, back then, a lot of those developers were always kind of looking, like, they were making their game, but consoles were so rapid to release back then that it was almost like you're kind of always moving forward, right? And, like, there's something about going backwards with new ideas to technology and taking advantage of things. And this feels like, you know, I don't know that it was planned that way, but it feels inherently that. So I guess
couldn't tell you.
I want to jump into kind of the overall plot. I will say we haven't stated this yet, but we're going to keep this spoiler free. So while this is a murder mystery and there's a lot of twists and turns, we won't reveal who the killer is. We won't reveal who died, that kind of stuff, so that you can enjoy it on your own. But, there might be like random little moments and things that we talk about. So keep aware of that. But yeah, knowing this was Swery, what was your familiarity with Swery before this game?
I don't think, I'm not sure if I really knew, especially when I first tried it. I wasn't really fully aware of many developers individually. I just knew companies. And
Kojima was like the one, right?
Maybe Miyamoto,
sure,
right, or like possibly Sakurai.
Yeah, Clippy B in there at this era as well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but like it's still like a handful. Like I couldn't probably name you more than 5 at that time, and so like very uneducated in that field. But I am noticing like there's an interesting, I guess I don't know if I call it a trend or what, but like that's not because like the full name was like Swery 65.
Yeah.
But it's weird how you have like Ryukishi 07, you have Suda 51. Like these all feel like names you would see on like AOL or something, just like online
like a handle,
names.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing.
Speaking of which, that was my exposure to Swery, is that he followed me on Twitter, so that's about all I'd known. Does he follow both of you as well? Because he seems to follow everybody in the entire world.
I don't think so, but I don't pay attention to my follower count that much.
I want to say that is more than likely to happen.
I remember it was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I got a notification that Swery followed me on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I looked, and he follows like, I don't know, 500,000 people or something at this point, probably.
Yeah, follows me.
It's pretty good. Other than that, I think by the time he'd followed me, I think I was probably following him, so he followed, I think he does that deal, but I had not played any of his games. In fact, this, outside of like maybe some of the work he did on some of his early projects, I don't think I've really played much of anything that he'd done, so this was a first. So, jumping into the plot of this game, broadly speaking, right? Like the setup, what this game is. You play as Agent Francis York Morgan, who prefers to go by York. Oh man, Sorry. As I'm walking backwards through this game now after completing it, so much makes sense, but I'm going to not say more than that, but I think you both know where I'm at. Anyway, he prefers to go by York, so we will collectively call him York. He's an FBI agent who is sent to this small town to investigate a murder because it seems related to other cases he's been investigating, where these red seeds are appearing at the crime scene. So we kind of open with him arriving in the town, crashing his car. Well, actually, we don't open there. When you launch the game, it immediately rolls into a cutscene, which gives you the indication that, like, this is one of those games that's just going to start until you have a save file, and that, like, that's how I approached it, but no, it's just that whole prologue where you actually see the crime scene and the discovery of said crime scene. Like, would you miss that if you didn't let once you actually start a game...
You can skip it.
No, I know you could skip it, because I did that, like, to get into the actual game, but, like, that doesn't play in the game itself, does it?
No. So that was the thing. I remember I briefly had started this on PS3, so I knew there was going to be a woman in the trees, and there was going to be a discovery of the body, and it's the 2 kids. And I know we said no spoilers, but this is literally the first cutscene.
Yeah.
So like I briefly remembered all that. So I couldn't remember if this cutscene was going to play when you started the game. So I skipped it. And then as soon as like the first scene started in the game, I was like, oh no, all right, I should probably just go back just to make sure I got all context of just remembering lady and tree and kids. Which I'm glad I did. But yeah, no, that scene is never played again, so it could be like the easiestly missed.
Because there's a lot of key stuff in there. Like there's
yeah,
a lot. So yeah, if you're playing this game for the first time, you should probably let that roll out. At least the first time you pop it on. So you're introduced there, then you start the game. You're playing as York. And then we kind of go from there. You get in to investigate the murder. You're kind of following up on clues that are both discovered and shared, and little things you pick up on by talking to the townspeople. And I don't even know where to jump in with this one. I think maybe we walk through like a day in the life of York. Like you kind of, there's story content that kind of drives you forward, right? There's always a main mission marker that you're supposed to follow or go to. But the game runs an internal clock, and it's not quite real time, but it is pretty close to 1 minute in your world takes 1 minute for York's world to advance.
I was trying to time it. It's like every like 20 to 30 seconds real time is a minute in the game.
Yeah, there was one point in the game where I needed to be somewhere and it was like 2.5 hours away. So I was like, all right, I'll just drive around until then. But it was like late enough that everything was closed. And then
And then you discovered smoking, right?
I didn't discover smoking until way late in the game. Like the ability to do that, to skip time. Also, since we're talking about smoking, you've now introduced my favorite part of the game, which is that I lost it when I first saw it, and I still... York smokes cigarettes, but he smokes a cigarette brand called Police. In all caps on the side of the box. They're just called Police. I swear.
I thought they were called Heavy.
The ones you pick up are called Heavy, but the initial pack in the car is Police.
When he's holding them, it says that. And dude, if they made a brand of cigarettes called Police, I'd start smoking again.
Did you
stupid.
you notice his lighter?
What was I can see that he's got, because he's very intentional with his...
It looked like there was an icon on it where it had like the cigarette, but it had the red circle with a line going through it. Like you're not supposed to use it for smoking or something.
That'd be great if it was.
That's what it looked like.
Let me see if I can find a screen of it. I don't know if
that
I'll be
fits.
able to.
I mean, yeah.
It's just like a no smoking
honestly,
symbol on there.
There might be a moment of dialogue, or there might be a side quest that ties into explaining what that is, because the game, while, I think at first glance you may think it kind of simple and whatever, just because you see graphically it's not far advanced. There's a lot of, especially when you do see the character animations, there's a lot of recycled animation throughout, a lot of poses and things that happened repeatedly. So it gives that impression that this is low budget. However, all of the, I think, programming and design and everything went into building a really realistic world that feels like you're a part of it, right? There's characters in the game, so many characters, townspeople, but all of them have their own routines. Did you ever notice when you were like driving around the town that like someone will just drive by you and their little name will be hovering above their head and you can follow them and see what they do all day?
Oh, on my playthrough, I didn't really... I might have noticed one person that was actually in the car. All the rest were just like your typical, like just generic cars with no one in them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was right. Yeah.
I found a good screen. Yeah. To confirm what Mark's good eye, by the way. Yeah. Good. Yeah. There is a no smoking little sign on the little flipped part of
It's so good.
of his lighter.
Yeah, there's a lot. Generally you do see cars driving by, and it's just generic traffic going by. But
Yeah.
a handful of times I noticed there'd be like a person's name above it. One of the times, there was a car that drove by, or not drove by. I'm sorry, bounced into existence right next to me, and the driver was outside of the car in driving. That was anyway. Yeah, more. We'll talk more on a little bit of the tech later on.
I don't know. There was one part where I was making a U-turn, like out of a parking lot, and there were people crossing the street, and I accidentally ran into one of them because you can't turn in this game, and I just got like a victim penalty for $30, and I didn't know what it meant, so I immediately quit the game and reloaded my save because I did not know if I was gonna fuck up anything. Down the road, yeah. So,
okay.
But yeah, no. The only reason I knew because they were holding those, they had the emblem for a card as well. Like I was supposed to talk to them for their card. So I don't know. I ran over them. The rest of the people started running away, and then I got charged $30 for killing a victim.
We need to talk about the
the currency
in this. The cost of goods in this game is wild and a bit surreal, but yeah, I mean, you can follow characters. You could go to characters' houses and watch them do things. Like every window in the game has the ability for York to peek through it. If you get out and you like walk up next to a building, there's little blue icons dancing on the ground next to the window, and you can go up and observe, and it's just York peeking through the window, watching what people are doing. So for key suspects and stuff like that, and I think like this is where maybe some of the game's history, because I feel like some of this game, development-wise, there's some hangovers that didn't get taken out. Like, I wonder if you were supposed to watch these people for a lot longer to try and uncover, you know what I mean? Like, observe them do things in their house to see, get clues and things.
Yeah, like, that would make more sense, actually. Because whenever I did the peeking, I probably only did it, like, maybe 3 or 4 times. But I thought it was just to show me where, like, those little pickups are, like, those little stars that you can get for extra cash or whatever. I was like, oh, there's one here that you missed. And I was like, man, don't show me that.
Yeah, there's that. But, like, if you go to some of the suspects' houses and watch them, like, you can see them make dinner. You can see them
That's cool.
Clean dishes. Like, they all... And the crazy thing is, like, they're doing this stuff in real time. Everyone's on their schedule. So, like, you know, I'm sure there's a wiki somewhere that shows you, like, the breakdown for Carol for every day. And if you follow Carol between 4 and 6 on this day, like, it's all programmed in there. And that part to me is the most impressive of this whole game.
Yeah. And I guess we should have mentioned that, like, York kind of has a quirk about him.
Oh, does he?
I mean, he has, so he kind of puts his fingers to, like, his temple, and he's, like, talking to himself, but it's like he's talking to somebody else, and I thought, my impression of it was that he's talking to the player.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
So, and it feels like he's referring to the player as Zach.
And there's a lot of things, though, contextually that make sense that he's kind of talking to the player. And in a way, he is, right? But, like, when you're driving around town, the beauty of this game is that so many other games would force you, like, gotta go, can't stop, you gotta get this thing done. You know what I mean? Like, there was something I was just playing recently where, I was replaying Arkham City. And in that, there was a point where, like, whatever story beat happened, I needed to go to that thing. And I was like, yeah, well, there's a Riddler trophy over there. And, there's that side quest I want to do real quick because I'm right here. And I did it. And it's just Kevin Conroy's voice, like, I don't have time for that. I have to get... And it's like, man, come on.
Yeah, like,
it's a video game. And this game does the opposite.
To, Batman?
Yeah. This game...
Talking to yourself?
York repeatedly tells the player, if you see something interesting, just go. If you'd like to get out and look at something, let's do that. Like, he never is... It's all very leisure. You do have time restrictions, right? Like, certain events happen where it's like, okay, you can only get this done between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. today. But if you missed that, I mean, in every case I was generally like just reloading a save if I missed a window or something. But you can just wait till the next day and do it then.
Yeah, I definitely messed up a stalking mission and had to like.
I reloaded the save on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. There's no time limit on this game at all.
Yeah.
Like you can just keep letting time pass, and like that led me upon like the first couple objectives in this game, and I saw a timer and times and time being such a big deal, and there was no watch button per se, but man, was I taken back to a special game called Shenmue real quick. The difference in Shenmue is, there's some side stuff, but the other thing with Shenmue is like, even though the deadline is so super duper far out, as you have to try to fail, there is technically you can't hang around and not do anything forever. So I found it weird that there was no time limit, especially like you're trying to solve a murder, but nah, I'm gonna go watch Emily cook some food for 5 days, and
you know what, that's just video games. That's very Zelda. You know, like there's this overbearing feeling of like, oh, you gotta save Zelda, but you know what? I think I'm gonna go bomb chew bowling real quick. I think I'm gonna go fishing.
Well, it's funny you bring up Zelda because this is in a way like a Zelda game. Like there's a lot of Matt's making that face, but there. Zelda games like Majora's Mask especially, obviously, like that's the big one with time, but even Ocarina of Time, things like a lot of Zelda games have these kind of scripted characters that are doing their routine, and they will run independently of whatever you're doing as Link, and you just kind of happen upon them. Majora's Mask especially, like there's certain timed events that you need to get to and whatever, but it's, I think, no different here. And yeah, that stuff I thought was interesting. So he talks to Zach, or you, or whatever you want to consider it, but he's very cagey about that. Like occasionally people will pick up on the fact that he's kind of talking to Zach, and that's
what I loved.
Yeah,
because I thought that was going to be just like a video game moment where it's like only the player sees that happening, and nobody else around them. But no, like they when your other, like, I guess, like other main characters, like the two sheriffs or deputies sheriff and the deputy that you drive around with, they
George
start
and Emily
to pick
specifically.
Up, like they start to pick up on it. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I like that it's being acknowledged.
Well, I think there's like even a scene where George is like getting frustrated with York, like very early on, and I think he even says something along like, "Oh, this guy talks to Zach and not us," or something like that.
That, but to the point of like kind of player agency, there's a lot of moments where like you meet with George or Emily or both, and it's like, hey, we need to get in the car together and go to this place and investigate something. And I don't know about you two, but I don't know, I'd be driving along and be like, ooh, there's a collectible trading card I need to stop and pick up, or there's one of these things. And I would stop to do that, and the second you get out of the car when you're escorting them somewhere, they're like, okay, well, we're going to go on ahead. I guess do what you got to do, but, that kind of stuff. And like the fact that was programmed in there, that like they're just going to go on ahead. Like, I don't know. I feel like a game like this would have maybe just had them disappear or stand next to the car and wait, or sit in the car and wait. But like, they took the time to program them saying, nope, we're going to go on ahead. We'll meet you there. Don't waste too much time. And same thing, like there was a point where I was driving and talking to Zach about DVDs, and
I love those moments.
The car,
optional dialogue.
Yes. So good. But we're talking about DVDs and the special features on DVD discs or something like that. And I'm driving and I hit the cutscene trigger, the checkpoint trigger. And I think any other game, right? Like, especially something like this, like an early PS2 GTA or something like that, or whatever, you would hit that thing, it would immediately kill the dialogue, load the next thing, and whatever. Instead, it kind of does that. It gives you that impression that's exactly what it's doing, but instead it's like, York's like, Zach, we'll pick this up later. Like, he stops to do that, and then the next time you're in the car, he's like, okay, so where do we leave off? And goes right back to, like, that stuff.
I think the only other game I can think of that did it is a PS4 game, and it's God of War. When you're in the rowboat with Atreus and the head, I forget his fucking name. Head Boy. When Head Boy's telling stories or whatever, and they get out the canoe, and he's like, we'll pick up on this later. Exactly like this, but I can't think of a game before then that even did it.
No,
I'm sure there are, but
I remember there was an optional dialogue that came up, and he was talking to Zach, and I had skipped it by accident. So like, if you hit start during it, it will just cut off the conversation.
Yeah, you can't pause.
Yeah, and but yeah, like you said, we'll always continue to pick it back up where they left off or whatever. There's only one time where it didn't happen. And I think it's because I had closed the game and reopened the file, so that might have reset it. But there was supposed to be York loves movies, loves movie trivia, and will talk about it almost endlessly if you do long drives and you opt in to listen to it. But he had questioned Zach, like some trivia question. It was like, what was this movie that this director did? It was the fourth in the series and of a popular series, whatever. And he said hey, we'll follow up on this later. Never found out. Never knew what the answer was to that question.
Oh,
so,
I think it was.
I still don't know.
I don't remember what it is now. I feel like he said it because then he started talking about Kevin Bacon.
Oh, is it Tremors?
Yeah,
because he talked about Tremors before, but I don't know if that was related. I don't know if it was the same question or not. It might have been, but I don't know. I remember him talking about Tremors. I remember him talking about Jaws. I remember him talking about some other movie.
I remember him talking about going to New York to go to CBGB to see the Ramones. A lot of that stuff in there. I think that is the stuff where it's like you can see Sweary's interests and pop culture references being injected nonstop. In fact, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but there's a scene where you go to dinner with George and Emily, and you're talking about like cases and stuff like that. You guys remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
And one of York's cases that he describes is just the lyrics to Skulls by Misfits. Like, it's about a killer who collects the heads of little girls and hangs them on his wall. Like, that's a Misfits song. But yeah, it was the guy who was like using the skulls as cups and also urine. Anyway.
Yeah, everyone's reactions to that was priceless.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, naturally so. It's kind of a gross, very gross case. But I think too, I don't want to get too deep into specific plot points, but that like kind of ties into, right, like, because that was very much, I mean, that's why he brought it up, but the fact that there's a lot of women victims in that old case, and then this current case that we're investigating in the town is also.
He brings this up a couple times too. Even like when he's driving, he'll just talk about those cases or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely like a common thread between it all. And as much as we've been highlighting parts of this game, it's funny that like the quote horror aspect of it is like it's there, but at the same time it feels like an add-on. Like it feels like it doesn't feel like the central part of this game, even though it happens quite a bit.
Well, so
until a certain point, but like
sure.
I think because how the game is set up and story beats aside, I feel like it's
I
more
don't
slice
think
of life than
it
that.
was ever supposed to be there, really. I think they were, but
Right.
so they're part of like the Square's interviews and things, and there's a game developer magazine had a post-mortem 5 years after the game that's worth a read if you're, into this game, you liked it and you want to hear more about how it was made and whatever and blah blah blah. But like the action stuff, the actual like gunplay and any of that was all the very last thing that was added to the game. And I think the fact that like there's a couple of systems that you're introduced to early on, like remember the very beginning of the game, they explicitly teach you how to use your flashlight, which you never have to use, right? Unless I missed something.
Not really, no.
And then there's a part where you learn how to hold your breath so you don't get grabbed by the ghosts, right? Like that's pretty early on. You do have to hold your breath when you're hiding from the raincoat killer.
But you're prompted. It's never like it's not on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe those, stealth section or not stealth, the monster sections, survival horror sections, like those may have been parts where you were just supposed to hold your breath and walk past them, but
I feel
Go ahead, Mark.
I'll say you can get different guns in this game, and your starting gun has infinite ammo. And I thought I'd pick like an easy mode or something for that to be a thing, but it's just the standard.
That's what I was going to ask about that. But
yeah, I'm thinking like on a harder difficulty, maybe like ammo was more scarce and you have to sneak by, but that was never really a situation.
Yeah, and I think that was my problem with the combat aspect, and it's tough to say this is survival horror when I'm not worried about the surviving. I just mow down everyone with a pistol.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think this is spoiling anything, but like the enemy types do not change really.
No.
There are a couple additions. There is one fucking random one at the very end of the game in a car scene.
Oh.
Don't know why. Don't know what. How. Sure. But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that just came out of nowhere. But other than that one,
so when that first happened, you before that segment starts, you're just in a parking lot.
Yeah,
and you just see it. Sorry,
you just spawn in, and it's just there.
You're just like, am I supposed to interact with this? They're like, no, get in the car. I'm like, but do you not see this fucking thing? No, get in the car.
Like, did it?
It's like, all right,
I kept wondering, like, is this real? Did something glitch? Like, was it not a,
Yeah, no, you just kind of gameplay starts, and all of a sudden, just right in front of you, and you're like, what? Like, at least like the one variation to an enemy was like creepily and like kind of sort of well introduced, right? Like the enemy
coming
that comes through Got it. Now then, however, the rest of the game, whenever you're in an area like that, you knew they were coming. But
right, yeah. Did you guys figure out the trick to killing them?
Yeah,
shotgun to the face a couple times.
But you just wait for them to appear and just
right. Yeah. Oh, what you
better? You wait for them to get on the sidewall rather than the ceiling or the floor, and you hit them with a melee weapon. Instant kill.
Well, I never used a melee weapon because I had infinite bullets.
Well, yeah, I mean, melees were typically like depending on the melee weapon, it was typically an instant kill on something, but it would take like half the durability away.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. I liked them. I liked them joining as a enemy type.
So I don't think I got on a tangent about that one enemy type, but no, I would say it's tough for this to be survival horror, and I like. Those sections became boring by the end, just because like I was never challenged. It was just as long as I have infinite handgun bullets and you're not changing the enemy types to make something tougher, like eat more. If it took like 30 rounds into a dude, and then I started having to use some other ammunitions and stuff like that, then all right, that's a little bit more survival horror, but we never get away from just like the standard. I think they're called shadows. I think that's how they're referred to in this game.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that was the one downfall. Again, survival horror is not my thing, but like, I kind of got into this. I was willing to see it through, so I was hoping there would be a bit more like, all right, like you probably need a submachine gun and some ammo to get through some of these sections, or like once you start using ammo, because the shadows start eating so many bullets, that's when you have to start sneaking around and being careful. I mean, because like I would say half the shadows I initiated combat with, because there's facing the other way and I start fucking firing away, pop, pop, pop.
And the game is very generous with item drops, so it's like even if you run out of ammo, you'll find it real quick again. If you don't end up buying it.
Yeah, there's tons. I stopped destroying crates and stuff, but there's tons of crates and things to destroy, and some of it, like, it doesn't even make sense that it dropped anything, but like you might get like a wooden fence. Perfect example. Like you destroy it, and one of those little badge star things comes out of it that gives you like $50, which of course you can use for ammunition once you
or 1 cup of coffee, whatever you'd prefer.
Yeah, or a couple hot dogs from the hotel woman or whatever.
So I think I'm gonna go out and buy hot dogs today to make, because the image of that hot dog, like that was like a good looking hot dog.
Tomatoes on it? Are you fucking crazy?
Yeah, like I have never seen 3 slices of tomatoes on a hot dog bun, like on the side.
Like I'm all for going above and beyond on a hot dog. Get creative. Don't just put 2 slices of tomato next to a hot dog and call it a day.
I don't know, man. If you get the right bun and you could do some stuff. Like, I
just would have never thought of to do it.
I remember going to what is it, Nathan's in Coney Island, and getting like one of each of the like specialty whatevers or whatever. Like, that's kind of, after playing this game, that's one of the things lingering with me that I want. I just want to go get a really nice. Not that Nathan's is gourmet, but somewhere I want to get a gourmet hot dog. I want like a real good.
I want like nasty, greasy. I want like a chili cheese dog on a pretzel bun from Sonic. Like that's
where I sit at for Orioles games. I have a hard time not going to this one special stand that's like right around the corner. Get a chili cheese dog every game. Oh, it's the spot, man. Every time.
Yeah, I need to make that a part of my life today.
We've mentioned it. We'd be remiss if you didn't talk about the economy and how you get money for every single fucking thing you do in this game. As you're shooting there and you're shooting these shadows in the head, and York's like, wow, good job, wow. And then, finally the shadow falls over, and then you get like $30 for killing an enemy, and then the additional 25 or something for a headshot.
25 for a headshot, yeah.
Yeah. But I think the best part, and this is something I brought up with Joe, is just the math of all this stuff. So one of the mechanics in this game, because it's like Shenmue, like clocks, hygiene's a thing, you have to change your clothes to not attract flies around you. Because you lose money if you get flies. Well, you lose like $15 or something.
I got charged for like dirty copper, or what did it say? Dirty agent.
I forgot. I didn't know it was a mechanic, and then here I am. You call the town into this town hall, and that's when the flies start flying around. I thought that was like the most appropriate time. Anyway, so you have to change clothes, and York has 3 different suits with him. So you change clothes, and then when you read the description of the old one is like very dirty, and you then realize like when you select it, there's a thing to clean it. So when you send it to the cleaners, and it takes about 10 hours or so for it to clean, but you get charged for it, and I think the most I got charged was like either 10 or $15, whatever. So like you get charged 10 or $15, but then you immediately exit that menu, and you make $40 for changing clothes in a day. So changing clothes and sending your clothes away to a cleaner, which should charge you money, you end up making surplus plus 30.
I mean,
same thing for call. Like you literally get money for saving the game. You like sometimes you have to use payphones, and oh my god, you get charged $1. $1,
yeah.
But when you exit the save animation, damn it, if I'm not making $50 for reporting, like it's the dumbest
I
shit.
love that. I think the moment I lost it is when I left the hotel room for the first time. Before you go and have breakfast with Polly, I left and I walked and I saw the vending machines, and I am a sucker for vending machines in video games. Like, I am always like, I want to go in and typically just buy one of everything. So I've just got them ready to go just because I want, I don't know. I walk up and a cup of coffee with milk is like $24 or something. And a cup
was
of
it like
coffee
times 3 or just one?
Huh?
Was it like times 3 cups or just one?
I thought it was just one.
Oh,
Okay.
it makes sense to be just one.
And
Yeah.
then a cup of coffee black is $31.50.
Because if you buy it from Poly, you get it in bulks of 3.
Right. I remember that. No, yeah, the vending machine prices were higher than what I'd seen elsewhere.
I don't think I ever used a vending machine either because
I
every
didn't
time I
buy
observed
it.
it,
I definitely didn't.
Well, I wouldn't either. That's outrageous.
right?
Ridiculous.
But no, because every time I observed it, York was like, "None of my favorites are in here." I'm like, "Well, look, I'm not fucking touching it then. We're just
Yeah.
gonna move on."
Yeah, it was just so that whole element was bizarre. I know that you can do. There's a lot of side missions, and I did a couple of them just kind of incidentally. I didn't go too far into them, but one that I missed is you can get the ability to fast travel. Did either of you unlock that one?
Are you
Oh,
kidding
I
me?
wish. What the fuck?
Are you, man? I was so mad that I have this map and I can't ping a destination and drive to it. I gotta guess.
Okay,
For the
all right.
life of me
Someone
that I'm-
introduce the
Here we
map.
are. Yeah.
Why the fuck can't I just zoom out and see the whole goddamn town? It's not that big.
I
No,
don't
you
know.
can only shift around.
And then, like, I'm looking for the mission, the marker. It doesn't even show up. It's like 30 seconds while
I
you're
mean,
viewing
it
that.
did. I mean, it did like train me to get to know the town a little bit and like what
Yeah.
roads to take to get to the point eventually. But at first, I was like, "Oh, this is
Okay,
rough. I don't know
but-
where the fuck's his hotel."
Think of GTA 3. You can see the whole map at any time. I
Yeah,
still
you
got to
can-
know Liberty City quite well, and I could probably still navigate it today. I
Yeah,
need
the
a
whole-
map. Like, I need a starting point at least.
The whole game is like a Hollywood B movie. Like you just
Right, and that's exactly how I
yeah.
went into this, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because I just went in with like the lowest effect. It was almost like
Yeah.
that the last Friday the 13th movie. I went in with the lowest expectations and enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was fun.
You're talking about the one with one from 2009?
Yeah.
They've not made another one since then, have they?
No.
Nope.
It's been
Yeah.
in
All right.
contract hell.
Yeah.
stay tuned, everyone. I mean, not this episode, but just in
No,
in
yeah.
life. In life, stay tuned.
Yeah, the map was. I did read that there's. So the other part of this is, and I guess let's. Yeah, why don't
Did
why don't we take
anyone? Well, I
Yeah.
was gonna ask, like, with the map, did anyone like use the little pixelated version before you hit map? Because I was like using that for reference at some point.
Yeah,
It was so bad.
And it,
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was mostly using that, but then when you hit the back button or select or whatever you're using, it like enlarges it on your screen.
I was
Mhm.
using that too. Yeah.
But that's all I did. I would just keep switching between those.
but and yeah, the thing that stinks is like when I knew I needed to go in and see the whole map, it
Mhm.
like it takes so long to pause, press
Mhm.
right twice.
Doing.
Yeah, that whole.
So, oh my god, the sound effects are probably scarier than anything in this game. It was like
What?
I had to like adjust the volume for most of it because
Yeah.
sometimes like the music was so loud that like you couldn't hear the people talk. It was like the music just overpowered the dialogue, which was kind of funny.
That's another thing. The music and the times they use music. Like,
Oh yeah, it's like it's like everything had a theme song. Every little moment in the game had its own track, but it was like the same 3 tracks.
There's part of me that wanted to go real meta when I edited this episode and just have the music from this game playing nonstop in the background, but at random times, and just but I felt like that would have detracted from
I would
the
love it.
conversation and the game for the listener. But I very
Yeah.
much wanted to just like grab any of those moments of silence when we are in between talking or trying to figure out if there's an opening, and just drop in the random guitar one or the
the
Yeah,
whistle.
Yeah,
whistle, the chase
the whistle
music.
song I think is called "Life Is Beautiful."
Mm.
I think that's the actual name of it. But Yeah, so like I would adjust the volume for the sound effects, so like going through the menu wasn't as loud until you're backing out,
Yeah.
and it's just like that. No matter what volume, that thing is ear piercing, and it's just like it's like the sound of like a jump scare almost.
I read that a fan patch on PC lets you scroll the map out all the way.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Not helping me on Switch.
No, but I think that's one thing to point out. So this game did come out on Xbox, PS3, PC, and now Switch. I know I ran into one crash on Switch. Matt, you had one, and Mark, you had two. Is that what it was?
Well, I have multiple.
Oh, you had multiple.
I have multiple. Yeah. So,
Oh,
one that one hurt the most that I talked to you about, but yeah, I've had a couple, but most of them are usually right at the start of a chapter.
I think mine was like whenever I was leaving a room and it was about to trigger a cutscene, or the cutscene was over and it would take me outside. That's when it would crash.
I think there's two. Oh, like I know two of my crashes specifically, and I don't know if it's just because I kept this game up in rest mode or whatever. I feel like it was a weird RAM thing, but whenever there were some cutscenes where you're talking, and then it would like flash back, and it seemed like it would almost have to like load a new environment for the flashback or whatever. And I could see the first time I didn't know what was happening, but the second time I could like see like, oh, I'm about to crash, because it would like have trouble loading, and then there was no audio, and then it would see like cut back to York for like 1 second, and then not communication error occurred. It's not Splatoon. An error, an error or something happened. Do you want to report it or whatever? So yeah, I struggled with that. So I actually, towards the end, like started turning off my game, like closing the software before putting my Switch into rest mode. To see that help clear out. Again, I know nothing about game development. I was just maybe assuming it was a weird RAM issue just the way.
Even if you knew about game development, I think the way that this one was put together might buck some of those trends. Mine happened, you remember the scene where you need to press the button on two statues pretty quickly to open up a door? Yeah. And then you go down and there's like a very long multi-staged cutscene that kind of jumps around with a lot of information. Mine was at the literal end of all of those cutscenes. No sign, no warning. It just boom, black screen. This software has been closed or whatever it said.
Yeah.
And when I loaded it up, I was like way back because I hadn't saved in a good bit. I like skipped a couple save points.
Oh no. Yeah.
Thankfully though, I could run right through, and because I was at the end of all those cutscenes, I could just like start my way through them and skip them. But yeah.
One last thing about the music. I don't want to spoil anything here, but there's a section late in the game, and you're so used to like 3 different tracks at this point. You got the whistle, the chase music, and like the piano one or whatever. All played at various random times that make no sense thematically to the scene or whatever. That's pretty apparent early with that first conversation with Polly. That's when I knew like what this game was. Just that cutscene and the music choices bouncing back and forth between sometimes the same track just later on in the conversation. Sure. But there's one part super late where you're kind of like you kind of like want to get up, like you're trying to find someone that you know is captured, and you're following this dog around who has scent of said person, and it's supposed to, it feels dramatic, like it's this chase scene. It's actually cutting to that said character who is trapped. And there's like cutscenes there and stuff that are dramatic. And it's one of those ones where like you're kind of looking out from their POV and you can move the camera around. So it's not even like a cutscene. You really can't even skip it. It's like you just kind of watch it through. So it's like cutting back and forth between us. But the music choice for the chasing part where you're following this dog is like the most upbeat, jazziest, fucking happiest music ever. Meanwhile, this is supposed to be like a tense, like life or death situation if you can't find this person. And
it's a Jet Set Radio track. Starts with like super heavy scratching.
I think like if people have seen The Dark Knight, like this scene is probably as closest to, at least, or it should be close to the scene where Batman has just left the interrogation room and is en route to try and go save Rachel from the warehouse.
Yes, yeah.
That is kind of like what this is. It's like, oh, everyone's kind of realizing what's happening. We need to go. And it's cutting between, you know, the captive and the captee or whatever.
The chase.
But yeah, it just, the music, the music might as well be like, it's like what would play in the background on like ABC Thursdays. Watch this new family comedy. That's like, it's the most lighthearted. I don't know. It'd play in the background of like deliver to home groceries commercial. Like it's like so like whatever. I don't know.
Did we hear the same track
for that part? I hope so.
With all like the record scratching?
Yeah. It's like a Jet Set Radio song.
Yeah. All right.
There's random lyrics in there too that just feel out of place. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
that one part you're having a weird
nutshell.
rendition of Amazing Grace going on.
that was great.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about
like,
that.
This game is all over the place with the music.
Yeah, but so good. I loved like the literal direction of the characters and their animations and the way that music would cut in and punctuate these things. I love that there was no mixing done to balance volume. Like,
no, you got to do that yourself.
So grateful for subtitles because there were so many points where like I would not have heard what anyone was saying if I were just relying on volume. It's nuts. I think one thing that stands out with this game was the kind of forced realism against complete surreality, and how the two complement and contradict each other all the way through Deadly Premonition. Like the way you play this game or can play this game in real time and live your life like you are York. Like you could really, I think it's the one unfortunate thing about playing it for this podcast is the fact that we probably didn't get to explore some of that periphery stuff as much.
I don't know if I would have wanted to though. I think I knew like time we were crunching a little bit to get this done, but I was never like intrigued. Like the only side mission that I accidentally stumbled into it was when I found the wait and the first time you're exploring the police station for all the fucking keys.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that 13 hours ago in my gameplay. Yeah. Like I found that wait that had Arnold on it. And then George is like, "Oh, I need my friend Arnold to finish my set or whatever." And like, I never once was like, "Where the fuck is Arnold at?" Like, I did not care. Maybe some of it was more intriguing or whatever, but aren't some of the side missions just like mission replays as well?
Some are.
I don't know. Yeah,
the sawmill. If you go back in there, it's just nothing but those like honor badges that you pick up. It's just a trail of those you can just go back and collect. And when those levels have like a chase scene sequence, York kind of tells you that, hey, we should leave. We should just leave immediately, and you don't have to backtrack. It'll just take you right out of the building, like right there.
Okay, that's cool. No, but I like randomly one night. I don't know if you were supposed to go there, but I saw there was a bar called Swery 65, and I was like, I'm going to go there. And there were people I could talk to, and it seemed like that was the first time I felt like I was naturally becoming York. And I was like kind of letting the game just happen rather than trying to just main mission. But I remember wandering in there and there were people, and I was like, oh wait, I could probably learn some stuff about the case if I talk to these people. And then I ended up playing darts. Did you guys play darts?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
I've played a lot of dart, video games at this point, or dart games in video games, I should say. I think between like Persona 5 and Yakuza, I think those are some of the best. And Final Fantasy VII Remake had a pretty good one too. This one, you have a gun, so you're still kind of like shooting. Like you hold L and then R to shoot, but the aiming, it's like an arc, like laser sight kind of thing. The problem is, in order to do it, you need to steady yourself by holding ZL, and that ends up filling your like anxious meter or whatever that whole thing. And there's no way to easily get it down in the moment. So I ended up getting a high score somehow because that was the side mission. I didn't even know it was a side mission. I just was like playing darts for fun. I ended up getting one, but the last like 3 to 6 throws I had were awful because I was completely shaking because I had run out of meter to keep myself stable. And I was just like, hopefully, and it would go. I got a high score, and then it was like side mission 29 completed or whatever number it was.
Right.
And I got something for it. I don't remember what I got for it, but there's a lot of stuff you get by doing the side missions. That's how you get the radio that lets you fast travel. You can get York's car back if you go to the junkyard. They fix it at the junkyard. You can get weapons with infinite ammo. Like, I think any of the weapons in the game you can actually upgrade to have infinite ammo as well. There's a lot of stuff that I think it's cool because you're not forced to. I beat the game, like, those final few end runs. The only guns I had were the FBI pistol and the submachine gun. That's it. And like, I ran out of submachine gun ammo in the final, not the final, like the penultimate, the one where you have to shoot the back.
Yes. Yeah.
I ran out of submachine gun ammo in that. So I was pistol for the rest of the game because I had never stopped and got more ammo for the submachine gun. I'd never bought the shotgun or any of that.
I found the shotgun.
Where was that at?
I think it was.
Yeah, just the enemy drops it, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I did, and I never went to the actual toolbox to equip it. To put.
Oh,
put
yeah.
It. That
no. I think it drops on a return to Muse's Gallery.
Yeah, maybe I did and didn't. I don't know.
There was one. If I had done the side stuff, the one I wanted to do the most was the bones.
Yeah, I grabbed a couple of the bones as I would like stop, drive, and grab them, and
like I only grabbed the one, and York was like, "We should tell someone about this. This is weird." And I'm like,
"Yeah,
sorry, dude. We got bigger fish to fry right now."
Yeah,
I'm wondering what that led to.
That I think there's just a lot of. I don't know. I also really enjoyed like how many individual systems were placed in the game because like I know that altogether none of them fully feel like they reach their full potential, but I really thought it was impressive like to see what types of actions were programmed to be done by the player rather than just be a cutscene or a quick time event or something else. Like the game would rather put you in control of some of those most like minute little things or rote kind of actions that York does. Like, I don't know, man, they program blinkers in the game. Like you don't need to use a blinker to turn, but like that
and
kind of
the windshield
stuff.
Wipers.
I did use did you guys use the windshield wipers?
No, because I was always zoomed out.
I would role play it.
You were what?
I was zoomed out of the car. You don't have to drive with the dashboard.
I know, but
you can use the face buttons.
What?
You can use the face buttons to change.
Wait, did you not know that?
No, I guess not.
Yeah, but even zoomed out, I still used the blinkers and the wipers. I was role playing.
I accidentally, so I didn't even realize I had blinkers on. It was Victoria. Victoria was watching me play. She was like, "Why are your blinkers on?" I'm like, "What?" And I just instinctively just like guessed left or right, and I like realized then I had blinkers. Yeah. I was like, "What the fuck is this game?"
So on the Switch, Joe, if you hit X, you will switch your point of view.
You don't have to drive with the dashboard. Oh, maybe that's why you like driving so much.
The whole time, I love driving in this game. Like, I mean, granted, it would have been nice as we were in a time crunch to have the fast travel to jump around.
Yeah.
But yeah,
my problem was, and this might just be like a Switch problem, although I wouldn't be shocked if it still lived on Xbox 360 and PS3, but it's the frame rate when you get into town driving. Like the
Yes,
game
that
chugs
is
to
not-
load everything, and
That is
you
not
go-
Switch exclusive.
Oh, okay, all right. So like the game chugs to render everything it wants to render, and you go from somewhat okay 30 frames, which is what most of this game is, to 5.
I first started. I mean, like I remember playing this on 360. That was a problem. When I played it on PC, it was a problem.
And then the other thing with driving was like I just felt like the sensitivity to turning left or right is just like
Yeah.
So
I thought
it's
I
like
thought it would
full
like,
90-degree turn left.
I thought it was because like of the damage done to my car. It just
No.
made it worse as I went on. Then I was like, no, that's not it.
I will say, if you think about it, the stick movement that results in a sharp turn, if you moved your actual steering wheel more than just a few degrees, you would go sideways too.
Okay.
Maybe not 90 degrees.
We're going to talk about this being the most video game ever, and then you're going to be like, well, in real life, you actually turn your... Yeah, no shit.
Look, man, they
But
put realism in there.
But like, there wouldn't be a crashing sound hitting grass.
All right, we need to talk about crashes. So especially there were some spots toward the end when you're going between the mansion and somewhere else where like it's like the two furthest points on the map. It seems like when you would get the mission marker, it was like 4,700 meters away. It was way. So I found the shortcut that ended up running along the railroad.
Same.
Did you guys get that too?
No.
All right. I'm driving along there, and there's one point in that shortcut where there's just rocks inexplicably, and I couldn't get out of the way fast enough. And by the time I'd reacted, crash. Now, every other time I'd crashed in the game, it would be like you bump into something, you hit whatever, yeah, whatever. This, the whole car erupted in flames, and I'm jamming B to get out of the car. Before I could, it explodes.
Oh shit!
And I'm like, oh my god, I have to redo all that crap. No, you don't. You walk out of the hospital, light a cigarette, and you get a penalty for like reckless abandonment or something. You lose like $60 or something.
I've never crashed a car. I flipped a car.
I flipped a
while
car and it
driving.
resets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that our I said so used to refer. I've been talking to myself and redressing myself as Zach in various different ways all throughout the week. But York just says something stupid too, Zach, like we can't be doing that again or something.
Yeah. I was terrified because when I'd flipped the car, it was after I'd exploded the car. So I thought, oh crap, because the hospital's way out of the way too. Like you don't want to be at the hospital when you're trying to get somewhere. It's
Yeah, and like a flipped car, we've played enough GTA to know that it's eventually going to catch on fire and you got to crawl out. No, not in this game. Not in this game.
Yeah. What is with the topless picture? Topless picture in York's hotel room. Did you guys clock that?
Oh yeah,
So
I
she was
did. I just
topless.
thought Polly was weird, and she is.
Yeah, she is strange. But yeah, there's like a random. I guess it's a painting, but it just looks like a topless woman. It's very, very like pixel. You can't see anything. Like,
Yeah.
it looks abstract, but like, what a weird image. Can you imagine going to a hotel room and a painting on your wall is just a topless woman?
And you do see it again in other buildings. It's not exclusive to
Yeah. But that I remember
It's the Greenvale exclusive woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys have any favorite lines or favorite kind of things that someone shouted or?
I know it's a meme, but the sandwich.
What was the sandwich?
When he ate that sandwich and he jumped out of his seat in excitement, and what you let off with.
Oh, the
Just
turkey
yeah.
strawberry jam cereal sandwich, whatever.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
I'm not sure if any lines stood out to me exactly, but the fact that York and I saw Emily do it. I can't remember. George might have done it. A couple characters do it, I think, where they just tap their chest with their finger. It makes me want to do it whenever I'm thinking about something. Like
It hurts.
they just do that. Like just whenever they're pondering, they're just tapping their chest.
Huh.
So that
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. I don't even know if they're tapping their chest, but it definitely animation looks like it's more like I think they want to do like a hand like thing, but like an Italian like gabagool.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, it was like every time someone was just like deep in thought, there's like
yeah,
weird body language.
I like there was the part when York asks Emily for coffee, but it's so abrupt. Like he doesn't say like I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he fully interrupts her. He's like, "Can you get me some coffee?" And then like that stood out. There's a couple other ones I actually wrote down, but I don't want to say them because they're kind of spoilery, so I won't. But like,
Right.
I'll say this: he calls out someone's name and then says, "Catch us." That one, I lost it. Like, what? What do you mean? You can't do that. This isn't gonna work.
very much like the other guys the aim for the bushes moment there.
Yeah. Every time he flashes his FBI badge, I screamed. I howled. I was no good. Just like he's introduced to people. Someone's like, "Hey, this is Agent
FBI,
York Morgan.
usually FBI agent too.
FBI agent, blah blah blah," and then he's just like throws his badge up, says his full name and title.
Call me York.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh, the fucking the chauffeur for Harry, who talked in rhymes.
Yes. Oh my god.
Fucking
That was
Dr.
so
Seuss.
good.
According
motherfucker.
to what's his name? It was Harry. I don't remember his full name though.
Stewart, I think.
Just goes in, you hear the whisper for Harry, and then he relays the message, and then just a slight pause with "according to Harry Stewart."
Yeah, like he always started the sentence with like Mr. Francis York Morgan, like blah 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 blah, and then like the words would rhyme, and then it always ends with "so says Mr. Stewart" or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Too good.
Who are you?
Arriving to that mansion a couple times and having to call, and then he's like, "We've been expecting you, Mr. Morgan or Francis York Morgan." And then
eat this in a
sometimes,
box.
like
You shall
after
eat
like
this with
traumatic
forks.
events, I'm not going to get into details, but just like any of the traumatic events that happen in this game, sometimes just the interaction between like York and some other characters just nonchalant after that. Like immediately after that, like they're like a joke might be said. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I think that's the stuff though that like makes it completely charming. My last 2 points I had written down here that I wanted to ask you is Emily Naomi Watts.
I feel like I need a visual for that, and I shouldn't.
She looks very strikingly like Naomi Watts.
You
And
can
then-
tell they put more effort into that character design than
Yeah.
some of the other ones. Like she's very distinctive. Like she looks like she doesn't belong in that game.
But
almost.
wait, so in that original trailer though for Sleepy, what's the name of that
Rainy
game?
City?
I said it earlier, now I forgot it.
Is it Rainy City?
Rainy Woods. Thank you.
Rainy Woods.
Group effort there. The character models are
Oh,
different
sorry.
it's not even York at that point. It was supposed to be another name. I think it was supposed to be David Young. Like his character model and what he looks like is completely different. So is George. George actually looks a bit younger in that Sleepy Woods game. And from what I gathered, or what would have been David, but it ends up being York. But in that game, he's supposed to be like more cynical, like not so like I don't know,
Serious?
like he's more serious that, but like in this one, like he's talking to Zach about movies and shit like that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be like a totally different like tone of character. So I wonder like. But like when I saw Emily though in that cut, she looked the same. So I wonder if like they just the change in characters, at least for those two. I mean, let's just be real. Like, those are the three characters you see a lot of just because they're working the case together. But like, yeah, I wonder if the switch in those two characters, and maybe they had to use different assets because the game changed, and I don't know. I think that might be why Emily stands out in a way, and it's not supposed to be like this weird sexualized thing.
Yeah,
I mean, also just playing the game, things also kind of make sense for why things are the way they are too. But so I could see that also being like there's some intention there.
Yeah, but she definitely looks off compared to the rest of the characters. But I think again that she's just, when you look at that original trailer, she's the only carryover, at least in the main characters you see all the time.
My other question is, was it a MIDI version of American Idiot by Green Day when you do... You guys didn't do the driving mini games, did you?
Fuck no. I did whatever I could to avoid driving. It was awful.
It sounds... I need to like go back and listen to it again side by side, but it sounds so much like... Yeah, I don't know. I very, very, very much liked this game, and I want to... I want to keep going back through. Maybe, I don't know, one day. It's not going to be soon, but I would love to go back through and just see what elements of the world did I miss. Maybe replaying it now with kind of knowing what the ending is, like look for things earlier on to see how things line up. Already just kind of talking through and walking through, I can kind of piece some things together differently from, earlier on. But yeah. Is there anything good or bad that either of you wanted to call out before we rank this?
I don't know if I call it good or bad, honestly, with this mechanic or function. I'm not sure if we really highlighted it, but the survival aspect of this game.
The sleeping and eating specifically.
Yes. So, like, you do have a health bar, and, like, the first aid stuff heals that, but you still have a hunger meter, and you have a sleep meter. And, like, depending on how long you are awake, I guess, throughout the day, that stuff starts to deplete, and you do need to refill that. But the way I was playing, I typically would use my bed to pass the time more than smoking cigarettes. So, like, smoking cigarettes, I feel like if you pass time that way, that seems to attract the flies more than anything, and like quicker. But sleeping never did that. But you always had to worry about eating or whatever. But like, yeah, like it felt like I didn't need to do it that often. Like throughout the game, I was just always well prepared, well equipped for almost anything. The tired meter probably filled up more than the hunger meter.
Yeah, I found that, like, the hunger part, I ended up having regular enough checkpoints back in with the hotel that I could just have breakfast with Polly before I'd need to.
Yeah, I always kind of kept something in my inventory that would do, like, a large, I think there was like smoked salmon or something, like, I don't know, like a salmon platter or whatever. Like I kept like one of those in my inventory, and then like you could keep so many lollipops. You could keep up to 10, and there's like this one. You're constantly getting lollipops, but there was one area, and you have a couple of them throughout the game, depending on where you're at. Like they just infinitely give you that item.
Yeah.
Like I could infinitely got I think at the graveyard, I think I could have gotten like all these pickles. There was another part. It was right before one of the chase sequences. I think it was in the sawmill. Like you can get infinite amount of lollipops.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So like, I feel like I kept like one of those around. And,
is this a bug? I don't.
Yeah. And then like the sleep thing, it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of my dumb. It's not a game breaking thing for me, but it's like a pet peeve. Is like, you're in danger. You just can't sleep whenever. Like Fallout. Like Fallout is the biggest like culprit of this. Like you'd be out in the middle of the open world and you find a little shack with a mattress and you sleep for 24 hours. Like nothing can. There's a grizzly bear and a rat scorpion right around the corner, but nope, you're good to sleep for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's the same thing here. Like, you're in one of those shadow sequences, and yeah, like, you get to like a room, which would probably be the equivalent of like a Resident Evil typewriter room, where like there's a toolbox that lets you exchange your items out, because it does have like an inventory system like that. And then yeah, there's like a bed and you sleep randomly. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of it, of course, but it's like, yeah, is this really survival when you're giving me all the tools so easily?
Right. And so yeah, I mean, that just echoes back earlier where it's just like, yeah, the game just always keeps you well prepared. So survival isn't really a thing, but I am curious about letting the tired meter go all the way down. I don't know what happens if you do let that go empty.
You lose life.
Oh, do you? Because hunger meter, if you let that go empty, your health starts depleting. So tired does the same thing. See, I was hoping tired would be like you start hallucinating maybe, or you start
no, that'd be fucking neat. And something
or
like
aim
the
it
shadows
off or
start appearing
something
outside of the after midnight. You know what I mean? Like that would have been
okay. Well, a bummer.
No, I think this is weird coming from me, but for a survival horror game, we talked about the survival not being there. The horror is really not there. Like, the combat feels... Like, I get the impression Silent Hill was the inspiration for, like, the shadows and the combat and stuff, but it just wasn't there. Nothing was ever, like, super creepy. I mean, the shadows themselves, like you know, for what this game looks like, they look pretty good. I thought, you know, they were alright enough. And then you have, like, the one ring girl crawling around out vents and shit. But, yeah, like, there was surprisingly not many jump scares. I thought for sure we get more.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm good with that. Jump scares aren't always, you know, they're cheap.
Right, but, all right, so let me say this. All right, so thinking of, like, Resident Evil Village, and I think we all remember the famous fucking house that I never want to go back into. There was never a moment of that. Like, I never stepped foot, even the first time through the sawmill, like, I never was like, shit, what's gonna happen? That fear never sunk in. And I don't know, I feel like I'm more susceptible, or, you know, it's easier for me to get to that point than you two, and it never even hit it for me.
Maybe Hotel Barcelona will do more of that. I don't know.
But, I mean, all that aside, I still find this game very charming, and it's like...
Yeah.
It's definitely one of a kind. Like, the blemishes, like, the imperfections kind of make it perfect in its own weird way. It's a weird thing, and not many games can get this type of feeling. Like, when other games do it, it's just not the same. But when this one, for some reason, does it, just... You can just see more with it.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of, like, you know, if you're doing like a painting or whatever, you have these bad brush strokes, but then they end up like making it better. I just feel like there's a number of those in this game that just by accident it makes it what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, it's just, it's a fantastic game that, like, at first glance you wouldn't think it, but playing it, seeing it through, it really is something unique and special. Before we rank this, I'm curious what you are both left with. Like, I'm walking out of this, and the combat is making me weirdly want to revisit Hitman, the newer Hitman trilogy that came out, and obviously the overall atmosphere is making me want to revisit Twin Peaks, because I never finished Twin Peaks.
Me neither.
I got like the first 5 or 6 episodes in and just fell off.
So, as I was continuing playing this game, I actually tried I tried having it on in the background, just so I could just make any comparisons between it while I was playing. But the Wi-Fi was being spotty, so I couldn't finish even the first episode for like the 20th time. I've seen that episode more than probably anything.
Yeah.
It made me want to watch X-Files too.
It for sure has that X-Files vibe too.
I mean, yeah, for sure, Twin Peaks. I never even tried starting Twin Peaks. I know it's always been like that one, like, you know, you should watch it, but I just never started it. But I mean, definitely, I mean, you can easily just go through YouTube clips of like this game versus like some of the scenes of Twin Peaks and see like similarities and whatever. I got that, but like I don't know. Honestly, maybe it's just because we're still. Well, I guess time of recording, but like we're still just outside of spooky season, and I don't know. Maybe it made me leaving. Like I'm ready for the next thing, but I want to get scared this time. I think.
You're ready for the next Deadly Premonition, or?
Well, so I'm definitely more curious about the sequel. I'm not buying it at full price though. I will wait for a sale patiently. And I don't necessarily need to play on Switch, I don't think. This one was just easy just because of the timing and stuff. But, yeah, I'm definitely more interested in the sequel, and I will play it at some point. I'm not in a rush to play it, though. But, like, I don't know. Like, we have all this Resident Evil stuff come in, like the expansion and that third-person mode and stuff. I don't know. Like, I think I'm, like, it got me more in the mood for that, which I didn't think I was going to be in the mood for by the time that released.
Yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of price, this game launched for the 360 at $19.99. Which is interesting. I think it worked at the time to at least get people to try it. I don't know. Makes me wonder why more games don't do that.
Well, it was never an economic success, so that's why.
Oh, yeah, that could do it. But, yeah. It was a success for me, though. I'll tell you that. We're going to rank this thing. If you want to follow along with everything we've ranked this season, you can do that at thefreecheese.com/thelist. This is the 40th game we are adding to the list, which means we only have 5 left. What will they be? Who knows? Well, we know, and we'll tell you soon what they're going to be.
This is by far the hardest one I've ranked.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I could, in all honesty, I could hear arguments for this being number 1. I could also hear arguments for this being number 39. I don't know. Not 40, 39.
Yeah. Gotta leave blinks at the bottom. Man. Yeah, every time I like place it somewhere looking at the list, I'm like, nah, it's better than that. It's better than that. Okay, then remember the map. There's that. I'm trying to find this. There's
the crashes, sometimes the bad moments, very bad moments.
Calculation happening in my brain. I think on the whole, all things considered, maybe this is our new number 10. Maybe this bumps Burnout 3 down, sits just below No Mercy. How does that feel? I've got a little bit of an awe look from Matt, and I have a look of perplexion from Mark.
The list is
it just made me it just made me want to compare the driving, and I'm like, I don't know.
It's so weird though. Like you just look down that list just a little bit more at 10, and you just see we have this game above Metal Gear Solid 2.
It is above, dude. Honestly, my gut was to put it above Pikmin 3.
Oh, I'm not that high on it.
I kept climbing from there. But I think back to like Sin and Punishment is so good. Sin and Punishment is like such a perfect package in and of itself. Res Infinite, I think, was incredible. Downwell is it's like Downwell is no fat, dude. There's nothing you need to trim off that game. It's just so solid. And I look back to No Mercy and like that. I think
I would put it right underneath Burnout.
And still above 999?
Yeah. I mean, 999 is good, and I'm always going to cherish that, but it's just the fact that it's more so, I guess, a visual novel. It's hard to have room for error.
Sure.
So it does play it a little safe, but
yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this. I'm not like seriously. All week I've been making fun of it in our text messages and shit like that. But refer to everything like I'm talking to Zach. But like, I don't think I'm that high on it when I start to look like at some of the games on this list.
Oh,
It could be a new number 10. I can settle for that.
well, Matt seems like he wants to pull it down. Where are you pulling it down to?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know where to put it. I'm just trying to look at random games and be like, yeah, it's better than that. But then like there's other games like right above or below where I'm like, no, no. This list is weird. I can't put it above Burnout though.
All right. I
think
that's
that's
the
like my
sweet spot
hard
then.
cutoff.
Then let's go new number 11. We'll leave Burnout in the top 10 for now.
Burnout did to me what that sandwich did to York.
Yeah, Burnout was very good.
It's fair because once I'm just like trying to think of these games. Like once you get like 10 and above at this rate right now, like it's hard to cherry pick. You're cherry picking if you're looking for something bad at that.
Yeah.
I think starting with like 9 and 9, there's some things that depending on your play style or how you approach games, you could find like a valid flaw, even if it's not a flaw, but something. Depending on the person you can complain about.
Yeah, I dig it. If you've not played Deadly Premonition, hopefully we didn't give away too much in this episode. Our goal was not to spoil some of the big moments. I'll say that, a lot of our episodes in the last few months have been on the hour-ish, sub-hour in some cases. This one got us going for, more than an hour and a half.
There's just so much to the game.
There really
There's a lot
is.
to chew on.
And I think like if we revisit this game in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, I think we'd have even more to say. If you've not played it, I really recommend checking it out. Take your time with it. It gets tough doing the podcast where this ends up being like that book you didn't read for school that you kept putting off, and you're like, it'll be fine. I can get it done before then. Don't do that approach. But yeah.
I feel
Next
more complete,
week,
finally.
The what?
So I feel more complete finishing this finally.
Yeah, I do too. Like I genuinely feel good having been all the way through this game and seeing what it has. Next week, come back for 479, where we're going to talk about one of the greatest video games ever created. Or is it? I don't know. We'll find out when we rank on the list. The game is Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. If you want to play along with us, it is available on most last generation platforms. 3DS, Vita, PS3, Xbox 360. Currently available backwards compatible on Xbox 360 as well. Am I missing one? Of course I am. The most important one. Nintendo Wii U. Get yourself a copy. You won't regret it. Come back and hang out with us then. Until then, Mark, thanks for picking Deadly Premonition. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mark, for hanging out. And thank you, listener, as always, for listening. Let's see you next time. Bye.